The woman who destroyed my life texted me 2 weeks before my wedding saying she needed to see me one last time, that everything wasn't what I thought. 7 years ago, she looked me in the eyes the night before our wedding and told me she never wanted to marry me while lying in bed with my cousin. Now she wanted closure, so I decided to give it to her, just not the kind she was expecting. My name is Nathan, I'm 34, and in 2 weeks I'm marrying the most exceptional woman I've ever known. Sophia is a federal prosecutor, brilliant and fierce, with this quiet strength that makes me feel grounded. After what happened 7 years ago, I never thought I'd trust anyone enough to try marriage again. But here I am, suit fitted, venue booked, completely certain. Then Madison's text arrived like a ghost clawing its way out of a grave I thought I'd sealed. The message was short. Nathan, I need to talk to you before your wedding. Please. You don't understand what really happened back then. I stared at my phone screen, chest tightening like someone had wrapped barbed wire around my ribs. I hadn't heard from this woman in 7 years. Not a single word, not an accidental encounter. Nothing. There was a very specific reason for that silence. 7 years ago, Madison and I were 24 hours away from getting married. Everything was ready. The venue was this restored Victorian mansion upstate that cost more than my first year of salary. My suit was pressed and hanging in the hotel closet. Her dress was custom designed, something her mother had sobbed over during the first fitting. 300 guests were flying in from across the country. We'd been together 5 years, lived together for 3, and I was stupid enough to believe I knew every corner of her soul. The night before the wedding, I realized I'd left the backup rings at our apartment. I'd been staying at a hotel with my groomsmen for the traditional pre-wedding separation, but the rings were in my nightstand drawer. No big deal, just a quick trip to grab them and get back before anyone missed me. I used my key to let myself in around 10:30. The lights were on, which seemed normal. I figured Madison was doing last-minute preparations or maybe couldn't sleep from nerves. I walked down the hallway toward our bedroom and heard her laugh. But it wasn't her normal laugh, the one she used with friends or when I made a terrible joke. This was intimate, breathy, the kind of sound I'd thought she reserved only for me. I opened the door without knocking because it was my apartment, my bedroom, my life about to start tomorrow. Madison was in our bed with my cousin Ryan. They weren't scrambling to cover up or stuttering excuses. They just froze, staring at me with this look that wasn't shock. It was resignation, like they'd been waiting for this moment and finally it had arrived. I understood everything instantly. This wasn't a mistake, wasn't a drunken lapse in judgment. This was a pattern, a choice they'd been making for who knows how long while I finalized seating charts and wrote my vows. I didn't yell, didn't throw anything or demand explanations. I just stood there in the doorway while my brain tried to process the impossible scene in front of me. Ryan started to say something, mouth opening with what I'm sure would have been some pathetic justification. Madison pulled the sheet up to her chest and said my name over and over like a broken record. Nathan, Nathan, Nathan. Then she said the words that are burned into my memory deeper than any scar. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I'm so sorry, but I never wanted to marry you. I wanted him. I've always wanted him." Our wedding was in 14 hours, and she was telling me I was never supposed to be the groom, that every moment of our relationship had been a lie, that I'd been a placeholder for someone else. I turned and walked out, didn't wait for Ryan's excuses or Madison's tears. Got in my car and drove back to the hotel in complete silence. No music, no thoughts, just this vast emptiness where my future used to exist. By midnight, I'd called the venue and canceled everything. By 2 a.m., I drafted an email to all 300 guests explaining the wedding was off due to unforeseen circumstances and I'd personally handle any travel reimbursements. By 6 a.m., I'd packed 2 suitcases with everything I couldn't live without. By noon on what should have been my wedding day, I was in my car driving 5 hours to Portland, where my college roommate had been trying to convince me to start a business with him for the past 3 years. I never spoke to Madison again. Blocked her number, blocked her email, blocked every single social media account. Cut Ryan out of my life completely, which meant I also had to distance myself from that entire side of the family since they all rallied around him. I left behind friends, my apartment, my job at the consulting firm, everything. Just packed up the wreckage and disappeared. The first year was brutal. I worked 22-hour days on our logistics software startup because when I stopped working, I started thinking about when the affair started, how many times they'd been together, whether our entire relationship had been theater. Questions that had no answers and would drive me insane if I let them. But somewhere around year 2, things started clicking. Our supply chain optimization platform actually solved real problems for mid-sized manufacturers. By year 3, we'd landed contracts with 2 Fortune 500 companies. By year 4, I'd bought out my partner's share and expanded to 6 cities. And somewhere along the way, Madison and Ryan just faded into background static. That's when I met Sophia. She was prosecuting a fraud case involving one of my clients. She was devastating in that courtroom, wouldn't let anyone slide on a single technical detail, pushed back on everything with this calm precision that was honestly magnetic. After the trial concluded, I asked her to dinner. She said no. 2 weeks later, I asked again. Another no. The third time she finally said yes, but told me later she only agreed because I'd shown appropriate persistence without crossing into harassment. We've been together 3 years now. She knows everything about Madison and Ryan. She's seen me on the anniversary dates when I get withdrawn and quiet. She's never pushed me to forgive or move on in some therapeutic way. She just exists beside me as this steady, unshakable presence that makes me feel safe. 5 months ago, I proposed on a random Thursday night while we were cooking dinner together. She said yes before I finished asking, laughing and kissing me with flowers still on her hands. And then Madison's text appeared and dragged everything back to the surface. I showed the message to Sophia immediately because we don't keep secrets. I expected her to tell me to delete it and block the new number. Instead, she read it 3 times, looked at me with those sharp prosecutor eyes and said, "If you're going to meet her, do it properly, on your terms. Close that door the way it should have been closed 7 years ago." So I texted Madison back, "I'll meet you Thursday at 7 p.m. at Russo's downtown. Come alone." Russo's is this upscale Italian place in the business district. Public, professional, nowhere near any place we used to go together. No emotional manipulation through nostalgia. What I didn't tell Madison was that I wouldn't be alone either. Sophia insisted on coming. "I'm not there to defend you or fight your battles," she said. "I'm there because I'm your future, and she needs to see that with absolute clarity." Thursday evening, Sophia and I arrived at Russo's at 6:40. She looked devastating in a navy suit, hair pulled back, every inch the Federal Prosecutor. We took a large corner table with clear sight lines to the entrance. The plan was simple. I'd hear whatever Madison had to say, but I'd have my future wife visible beside me. No private heart-to-heart, no chance for tears and manipulation in some secluded booth. Madison walked in at 7:05. I barely recognized her at first. 7 years ago, she'd been vibrant, always perfectly styled, confident in that way people are when life is going their way. The woman who walked through the door looked diminished, worn down. Her clothes were nice, but not the luxury brands she used to favor. No jewelry beyond small earrings. Her hair was shorter, darker, but it was her eyes that shocked me. They had this desperate, hollow quality, like someone who'd been living in survival mode for too long. She saw me immediately, then saw Sophia, and her face fell. She approached slowly, clutching her purse like a shield. "Nathan," she said quietly, "I didn't realize you'd bring someone. You said you needed to talk." I replied evenly. "So talk. This is Sophia, my fiancée." Sophia nodded politely but didn't smile or extend her hand, just acknowledged Madison's existence with the warmth you'd give a stranger. Madison stared at her for a long moment, and I watched something crumble in her expression. Some last hope she'd been carrying. "Could we talk privately?" Madison asked, voice shaking. "No," I said, not aggressively, just firmly. "Whatever you need to say, you can say here." She sat down across from us and tears were already forming. "Nathan, I know what I did was unforgivable, but you need to understand." "Madison," I interrupted, "you sent me a message saying things aren't what I think. I'm here. Tell me what you came to tell me and let's be done with this." She looked at Sophia again, then back at me. "Ryan and it wasn't supposed to happen. It just, don't," I said, holding up a hand. "Do not tell me it just happened. I saw you in our bed the night before our wedding. There were wine glasses on the nightstand. You two were having a romantic evening in the apartment I paid for. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending it was a moment of weakness." The tears came harder. "You're right. It wasn't the first time. It had been going on for 8 months. But Nathan, you have to understand the pressure I was under, the confusion." "I don't have to understand anything," I said. "What I understand is that you betrayed me with my own cousin while letting me pay for a wedding. You let me believe we had a future. You let 300 people fly in from across the country. And then you destroyed it all because you wanted someone else." "I know," she said, voice breaking. "I know what I did and I've paid for it, Nathan. God, have I paid for it." That's when Sophia spoke for the first time, her voice sharp and controlled. "Paid for it how?" "By having to face consequences for your own actions." Madison shot her a look, then focused back on me. "Ryan left me 3 weeks after you did. Once everything blew up and everyone found out, he said he never meant for things to get serious. That he wasn't ready to settle down. I lost my job because people at the marketing firm found out what happened. Most of our friends took your side. My parents barely speak to me. I've been in therapy for 5 years trying to understand why I sabotaged something good. I sat there listening to this catalog of consequences and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just hollow detachment. And what does any of that have to do with me? I made a mistake," she whispered. "I've spent 7 years regretting it. I've worked on myself. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry and that I understand what I destroyed. I hope." "You hope what?" Sophia cut in, leaning forward slightly. "That he'll forgive you so you can feel better about yourself? You want closure, but that's not his job. He's not your therapist and he's not your priest." I reached over and put my hand on Sophia's, a silent thank you. Then I looked at Madison directly. "You want me to say something that makes you feel less guilty, but I can't do that. What you did 7 years ago changed everything. I left my entire life behind. I rebuilt from scratch in a new city. And honestly, I'm better for it now. The business I built, the life I have, the woman I'm about to marry, none of that would exist if you hadn't done what you did." Madison's face crumpled. "So you're saying you're glad it happened?" "I'm saying I've moved on completely," I replied. "I don't think about you anymore. I don't wonder what if. I don't carry anger or hatred. You're just nothing to me now. And that's not me being cruel. That's just the truth." "Nathan, please." "Thank you for coming," I said, standing up. "I mean that. I think I needed to see you one more time to realize how completely over this I am. But this is goodbye, Madison. For real this time. Sophia stood beside me and looked at Madison with an expression that could cut steel. From this point forward, you do not contact Nathan again. Not for closure, not for apologies, not for anything. We're getting married in 13 days, and you will not be part of our lives in any capacity. Are we clear? Madison just nodded, tears streaming down her face. We left her sitting there alone at that table, and I didn't look back. The drive home was quiet. Sophia held my hand the whole way. When we got back to our apartment, she poured us both scotch and we sat on the couch in comfortable silence. "How do you feel?" she finally asked. "Lighter," I admitted. "Like I just put down something heavy I didn't know I was still carrying." She smiled and kissed me. "Good. Now let's get married and never think about her again." I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, my uncle called. We hadn't spoken in 7 years beyond awkward holiday texts. When everything happened with Madison and Ryan, half the family took Ryan's side. Told me I was overreacting, that family is family, that I needed to be the bigger person. When I left the state, they said I was running away like a coward. "Nathan," Uncle Derek said when I answered, his voice strained. "Ryan told me you met with Madison. He's really struggling. He wants to apologize, try to make things right before your wedding. I'm hoping you'll consider talking to him." I actually laughed. Not mean, just genuinely incredulous. "You're calling me to advocate for Ryan. The same Ryan who slept with my fiancée the night before my wedding." He sighed like he was dealing with an unreasonable child. "That was a long time ago. People make mistakes. He's family, Nathan." "No," I said flatly. "He stopped being family the moment he betrayed me. And you stopped being my uncle when you chose him over me." Long silence. "That's not fair. I was trying to keep the family together. By asking me to forgive the unforgivable. You made your choice 7 years ago and I made mine. I left. I built a new life. I'm marrying a woman who actually respects me. Ryan and his apology can go to hell. And you know what? Don't come to my wedding either. This conversation is over." I hung up. Sophia squeezed my shoulder. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. The next day, my business partner called sounding furious. "Dude, you need to know something. Madison showed up at the office an hour ago. Apparently she tracked down where he worked and came by to express concerns about me. Told him she was worried I was rushing into marriage without processing my trauma, that I should postpone the wedding to make sure I was doing it for the right reasons. He'd threatened to call security and she'd left, but the audacity stunned me. That's when Sophia made an executive decision. She drafted a cease and desist letter through the U.S. Attorney's Office connections and had it delivered to Madison that evening. The letter stated that any further contact with me, my fiancé, or any of our friends or associates would be considered harassment and could result in legal action. She didn't ask permission, just handled it. "You're too nice to do it yourself," she explained. "And this woman clearly doesn't understand what no means." The morning after that, I got a long email from Ryan. I skimmed it without really reading. He's apparently engaged now, poor woman, and wanted to clear the air before his own wedding. Something about personal growth and understanding what he did was wrong. He mentioned that Madison reached out to him after seeing me and she's not in a good place mentally. Could I please consider showing compassion? I forwarded it to Sophia without responding. She texted back, "Want me to add him to the cease and desist?" I told her to keep it as an option. The wedding happened last Saturday and it was perfect. Small ceremony at a private vineyard, 50 people who actually wanted to be there. Sophia looked absolutely stunning. My business partner was my best man and gave a speech about how I rose from the ashes like a phoenix in a designer suit. Sophia's parents cried. I almost did too. During our first dance, Sophia whispered, "No regrets." I knew what she was asking. Not about marrying her, but about everything that led us here. None, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. The day before the wedding, I'd gotten one final text from an unknown number. Just 3 words, "I'm sorry, Nathan." I deleted it without responding. Haven't heard from Madison since. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she moved back to her hometown 4 hours away, working retail management. I hope she figures her life out, but it's not my concern anymore. As for Ryan, his engagement apparently fell apart after his fiancée found out about what happened with Madison and me. He also lost his job at Uncle Derek's company after they had some massive falling out. Last I heard, he moved 2 states away to start over.
Sounds familiar.
Karma doesn't need my help. Uncle Derek sent a card after the wedding. No apology, just congratulations with his signature. I threw it away. A cousin told me he's not doing well, that Ryan's departure hit him hard, and he finally admitted maybe he backed the wrong nephew. Too little, too late. Sophia is currently asleep on the couch next to me as I write this, exhausted from unpacking after our honeymoon in New Zealand. She's got case files spread across the coffee table, reading glasses crooked on her face, snoring softly. I've never been more certain about anything than I am about choosing her. People told me I needed to forgive Madison and Ryan to move on, to find peace. But I don't think that's true. What they did was unforgivable, and I'm not obligated to absolve them so they can feel better. What I did instead was build something new. I chose to invest my energy into creating a life that didn't include them rather than spending years being angry about what they destroyed. The woman who destroyed my life 7 years ago is nothing to me now. Not because I forgave her, but because I moved on so completely that she became irrelevant. And that's the best ending there is.